Hi, welcome everyone. This is Zach with Creatitive with another episode of Sports and Marketing Talk. Today, we're going to go over a few things, a sports article, and we're also going to go over user experience. So stay tuned. So, news article that came out recently that Lakers Josh Hart rip media who have never played professional sports. I guess I would be one of those media companies. Sports digital marketing is what we do, and so we work with athletes and we work with athletic related companies, and we help them promote themselves and we help them grow. Uh, to be honest, I think this is kind of a low blow. I think it's a low blow to non-athletes. I think that anyone can be an athlete. I still play rec soccer. I go to the gym on a normal basis. I watch my food on a normal basis. Yes, I'm not a professional athlete. I don't go out there and I don't receive tons of money and high-paying sponsors for what I do for a living. But that doesn't mean I'm not 100% engraved in it. Me personally is a passion, and I'm going to say this for most sports media companies when it comes to not just marketing companies, if it comes to CBS, when it comes to ESPN, there tends to be a lot of athletes that work for them when it comes to being announcers, when it comes to, just working in the back office. And I'd say that research would show that media companies, let me rephrase this. Media companies are a business. Media companies do research. Higher end companies do research. So from my perspective, they may actually have a better knowledge of it than the player themselves. Yes, they're not out there on the court. They may have played a basketball game here and there with their friends. They may not have. They may have been a professional. They may not have. But that doesn't mean that they don't understand the ins and outs. They may not have the same pain points when it comes to an athlete and what they're going to do after they make that kind of money. They make different kinds of money. Their reoccurring income is either a corporate gig or it's owning a business that helps athletes. But we have to do research too. We have to go out there. We have to figure out what's going on in recent sports. We have to try to figure out the pain points. We have to try to figure out what's going to help these athletes grow as an individual and as an athlete on and off the field. So, I really feel like what he's talking about right here is anti-analytics. I mean, it's basically saying that I don't believe in analytics. I don't believe in what these companies are doing, and I think with the growing of how sports are starting going to be streamed on Amazon and how sports are such a huge growing market in today's environment, that I don't think that that's the case. There's a lot of thriving industries out there that are working on this. So now to our marketing tip of the day. So let's talk a little bit about web design. What is user experience and why is it important? So, user experience. If you are an athlete or you are an athletic related company, you may have dealt with, I'm going to say the commodity because that's how the commodity is these days, the do-it-yourself build your website, or the do-it-yourself Fiverr build your logo aspect. I tend to look away from that stuff when it comes to owning my own sports marketing company. That stuff is for people who are trying to get the quick fix, are trying to think that they can spend little to no money on building something that's going to be great. Now, user experience isn't web design. They can kind of relate together, and you're going to get a lot of web designers that are going to be focused on the user experience side of things. And me being the very beginning stages of a millennial, I was in that phase. I grew up as got my bachelor's in graphic design, but then I slowly moved away towards the web design, went through the Web 3.0 era in the early, the 2010 time frame, and I saw the trends on how the web started becoming popular, and now, excitingly enough, it's all flat design. What I have noticed is that user experience should be a large focus, but more so when the company is ready to expand. Now, let me explain a little bit of what user experience is. If you have a website and you're selling a product, when people come to your site, the web design is mostly what people see. They see the colors, they see the fonts. That's part of your brand. That's part of your brand image. The fonts, part of your brand image. But before that, there's a step before that is now getting very popular, UX and UI design, which is user experience and user interface design, where you're designing out what the website looks like before you go to the web design process. So you design, we'll just say non-designed, non-graphical user boards of what the website's going to look like from a user standpoint, and then you test those pages. Because at the end of the day, most people that come to websites, and it's a crazy number, is that the studies show that about 55% of visitors spend less than 15 seconds on a website. Best practices recommend focusing on catching the user's attention in 59 seconds or less. I mean, that's crazy. And some of those indications, yes, you have to deal with the loading speeds. If the loading speeds are wrong, people are going to leave. We have attention spans of hamsters. People want what they want now, especially with the way the web works. So if you're building a website, which I think every company should be focusing on moving more towards the digital side of trying to build their business, that they focus on wireframing. At least not the first time around. If you're doing it yourself, I'd say yeah, you don't need to spend the money on it. But as you get more towards growing a business where you're at the point where you're like, why am I not making more sales? Why is my conversion rate on my website lower? The average for a conversion rate for a product is around 5%. So you need to get a lot of clients on there to buy those products. And to do so, once you start getting a lot of those clients in and you start making those sales, it's crazy how many more sales you could get by just lowering your conversion rate from 5% to 4% and even to 3%. Actually, correct me. I think 5% is for service-based businesses. I think that no, I'm right. 5% for a product. 3% is service-based. It's less for service-based businesses because you have to go through a much bigger funnel. You're more so trying to capture them on a call. If you're a public speaker, for instance. So what these do, what this user experience does, is these wireframes, we'll call them, is it kind of shows you what the websites look like before there's design implemented on it. It kind of shows, hey, let's have an end user look at this and see how easy it is. You want it to be as simple as possible. From a design perspective, I'll always say it's harder to make things simple and readable and understandable than it is to just throw a crap load of stuff on a page. People don't want to read that. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to put their eyes. So focus on building that first before you actually do the coding of your website. And what that does is that really helps the end user. And I'll go back to my previous story on Josh Hart saying people don't understand athletes' worlds that are in this world. So saying the media companies don't understand. Well, what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to acknowledge those people in the athletic realm of it. If you're willing to learn it and you're willing to take the time to research it, damned as if you're not going to have experience in it. So again, user experience is the use of the end user, focusing on the end user, and this can come all the way back to doing research on your logo development and figuring out what your target demographic is and figuring out what the user's experience will be from seeing your logo to going to your website to clicking a link to funneling down on hitting the contact form. I would never say a contact form is really that important. I would say more so a funnel is important with a landing page or something that's giving them some sort of offer or some sort of incentive to want to purchase your ability. So if you're an athlete, for instance, we'll just use an athlete for example here. If you're building a website on, let's say that you're trying to market yourself as an individual. If you go back to one of my previous, my last video, my last podcast, you'll see that I talked a lot about blogging Blogging is a major part of getting people to the site. That would be a beginning step of user experience. Hey, we're going to be giving content out that's related to the client. We want them to be intrigued on this information. We want them to read this information. And so having that as part of your strategy, and that's how they're going to find you on the web. But once they get to your website, what are you selling? If you're a public speaker, for instance, let's say you're going out and you want to become a public speaker, we would talk a lot at the beginning when we're building your brand for your athletic related business. Well, we would talk a lot about, hey, what are you really, who is your market? And we come to find out, and I'm just going off the top of my head right now, that your market's probably going to be, and this is just off the top of my head, I mean, this isn't research by any means, but we'll just say corporate 40-year-olds, males and females, that have large companies that are looking to grow, looking to give their motivation to their individual employees on the best aspect on how to become better at themselves, how to motivate themselves. In turn, it will get them to want to get more production out of their employees. So that's why they're paying you, is because you're bringing motivation and you're lowering their end cost of, or producing more work for their end cost, for their actual individuals that work for them. So that's where we would kind of tailor some of that stuff, and we would tailor your user experience around that. We would say, hey, how does this website need to be built? How are we going to relay? We don't want 80 different products on your site. If a book is involved, if a program training is involved, we'd have to focus on one direction where your end goal was, and then we can kind of focus on how we're going to build that for you in your ongoing business. And that's just a little bit about user experience. It's not much, but if you have any more questions on it, definitely write a comment or email me, and we can discuss further. But besides that, I hope you guys all have a good day.